What's up, everybody? Welcome to our little webinar. Today we are going to be talking about ChatGPT and
We're going to deep dive into actually using it and show you how we use it. We're going to show you what prompts we put in, what kind of content we pull out. Now, if you're jumped ahead and didn't watch our strategy one, it's okay. I'll let it slide. But when you get done with this, go back and watch it because you really need the two sides. Getting the type of content, the quality of content, how good you are with it comes down to not just prompting, but feeding it the right backstory, having the right mentality about how you're thinking about your content and your marketing, having the right backstory to feed into the system so that when you do hit a prompt, it pulls out really good content, not generic content. And so stick around, watch this session. But like I said, if you didn't watch the strategy one, you need to go back and watch it.
Highly recommend it.
Webinar is that it matters what you put into this system. And so you guys getting this backstory of how we approach content and how we go about this process was necessary.
Right. So I'm going to see if I can stop. I'm going to switch over to my computer here. Right. So you should be able to see my computer. Right. Cancel. All right. So this is what ChatGPT looks like. This is basically just a console. There are some add-ons here. So I do have a Plus account. ChatGPT Plus means I pay $20 a month. It doesn't really enhance the features per se. It does make it faster. I also have this add-on down here, which is Web ChatGPT. This is a Chrome extension that allows ChatGPT, as of like the last I heard was, it has gobbled up all the information on the internet like 3 years ago.
Since 2001.
Yeah. So the stuff that's happened in the last 3 years, current event stuff, may not be in there. And that can cause you a problem if you're trying to write content about current events.
Current market trends, interest rates, things like that.
Right.
So that I think it's that's a free Chrome extension. I personally have done all of my content and I do not have a Plus account. So again, This is not to get you guys to go out and buy ChatGPT at all.
And so, but the main difference right off as we start with this versus say Jasper or Jarvis or whatever its name is right now is this is just an open text box, very similar to Google. Now, if you think about that and say, oh my gosh, ChatGPT is going to change the whole world. Well, so did Google for 10% of people. Google in the hands of an expert searcher changed my life, but yet a whole bunch of randos don't know how to run a search and don't know how to look through it. And so they still ask me to Google stuff for them. And so if you think about ChatGPT in that same context, like there is a simple tool that can be used simply that might give you the idea that you know how to ride a bike. But if the goal is to ride a mountain bike downhill, then that's not the same thing. You need to perfect your craft. And so if we go with we'll use a bad example, which might be something like, I am a real estate agent in St. George, Utah. Can you help me write some social media posts targeting people looking to sell their homes, right? That's probably pretty normal. I bet the average real estate agent threw that in here.
Oh,
First step,
Oh.
looking to sell your home does not mean looking for a real estate agent. Let's make sure everybody gets that.
True.
Looking to sell your home does not equal looking for, so you might have looking to sell your home. Let me help you get top dollar. Now, literally think about this. This is bottom of funnel. This is very commission breath. This is an ask.
Looking for a real estate agent who knows the St. George market inside and out? Look no further. Contact me for personalized service and expert advice.
So this right here, if you've been following other real estate agents on social, you would look at this, go, oh my gosh, this solved my problem.
I just got 10 ideas in like 2 seconds.
I just got 10 ideas. This is legit. What you don't know is all of that self-promotion makes them an ask hole is the way I like to look at. We have 2 types of holes. We have ask holes and post holes. I'm just posting a bunch of stuff. Oh my gosh, my life is so great. And I'm asking for the withdrawal. That's not a value deposit. That's not the same as offering help and providing value. And so this did a really good job. Now I might say, help me write, maybe I'm going to say, help me write some marketing content. Can you write for me a marketing piece for my door hangers? Now it's going to remember because it's remembering this backstory. So again, think about this like this is employee number 1, real estate social post.
Okay, we're selling houses.
Right?
Write us some content
to
sell a house.
And so again, it's why choose me as your real estate agent? Great. That assumes that I want a real estate agent. Again, bottom of the funnel was the choice. We are still in the top of the funnel from a, should I sell my house? If I do sell my house, what's it worth? If I do sell it, what do I do next? Like, what are the steps? How's the market right now? How's it going to work? If I sell it, am I selling too early? Like all of these questions that happen before you decide to sell the house also happen way before you decide you need an agent. That happens way before you decide which agent. This, if you look at it, is which agent, bottom of funnel, not top of funnel. Should I sell my house right now?
So you could do something like create me a TikTok script for a reel, or is that a reel? Is it a reel on TikTok?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah. Create a TikTok script.
How to decide when is a great time to sell. You see, by switching my question, I just bumped up in the journey, right? I just leveled up. When to sell is different than I want to sell, is different than I'm ready to get an agent to list. If you might get somebody who's like, write a piece of content. So it would do really well of write a piece of like write a blog post. So one of the first things I don't do, I don't use sales or marketing as my words. This is my personal thing. I don't ask for marketing content. The reason why is because ChatGPT believes marketing content and sales content is bottom of funnel.
It's pushy.
Yeah, in its mind, sales content is like one-to-one, and marketing content happens right before that. Both of those are at the bottom. So I'm going to want educational content, right? So I might say something like, write a blog educating homeowners about the different options for selling their home and the pros and cons of each option.
It is interesting here if you see, just by giving them that little bit more information of to help decide if it's the right time to sell, it's getting smarter. Like it's learning here of like, oh, like, are you considering your personal circumstances? Are you ready to move to a new city? Like, is your house ready? Does it need work? And so we're getting a little bit more in-depth content.
Now, if I look at this, what I've just done, I'm doing better than probably the average person, except once again, who is my niche? So if I start with this and I scroll back up, you should be able to go back and ask yourself the question. Step one, who am I? Like, not who am I? I'm a real estate agent. That is not who you are. That is not your differentiator. I'm not a software guy. Like, I am a specific person. I have these certain values and I have a mission. I like to help people with X, Y, and Z. I love pickleball and mountain biking and snowboarding. You are not a real estate agent. You're a person, a human. So that, like the first one, who am I? What is my story? I'm a human. I happen to be a real estate agent, but I'm a human. I am irreverent. I am compelling. I like
witty, sarcastic,
you know, whatever it is, that's who you are. We call this the character diamond, and we can actually send out there's a character diamond video. You can Google it, Character Diamond by Ryan Dice. It will talk about how to create a compelling character. I think it was like 2 years ago, snowboarding one night, driving back from snowboarding, that we unpacked like, yeah, Sarah, but what is your character? Who are you? What is the main thing about you? What makes you interesting? What is the hill you'll die on? What are those core values you believe in? What's your quirks, right?
Yeah.
That one is the hard one, to be honest. The what is my quirk? I'm going to show up in pickleball clothes. It is the one that we don't want. And so we're like, oh, I'm a superhero with only positives, which means I'm not a human. I'm not actually relatable without my downsides. And so that's our first part. We can't answer who. Number two, if I say, who's my target in this? And you read this, you would say, well, it sounds like his target is people looking to sell their homes. Mistake number one is I'm just a real estate agent. Mistake number two is my niche is sellers. That is a very vague group of people, right? That's not the same. And so I just created that, which means when I come to what is my pain, well, since I'm just an agent and I'm just targeting sellers, the pain is very simplistic. When should I know how to buy? And the answer is, it freaking depends. That's the answer. It depends. I don't know your situation. Do you need to sell tomorrow so you can pay off your bills because you're going bankrupt? Well, the time to buy is now or sell is now. Do you is this your home that you're saving up for or whatever? Like, and so that's the problem set is we haven't given a good enough backstory. So now you get into how can we do that? And this is like my next hack. So I use an app called Otter. This is a voice to text app. So for me, the very first thing here's one of my hacks is I want to say, create a list of interview questions to ask a real estate agent to help them identify a narrow niche of people that they are going to help, right? So my first part is we as humans are really, really good at answering questions. When I write content, I start with a question because I give it an answer, right? I don't start with a heading. And so this just gave me a backstory on who am I? What motivated you? What do you think sets you apart from other real estate agents? What types of clients do you enjoy working with? What do you think are some of the biggest challenges, right? And so you can kind of take this. Now, what would I do with that? I would fire up Otter right here. This is Otter. And so you can see it transcribing as I go. And so I'm literally going to take this and say, what are some of your passions or hobbies outside of real estate? Well, I love pickleball. Pickleball is a super fun sport. It's a fast growing sport in the United States. It's a very network sport. It's where I can meet people and add value to them. I also love snowboarding, specifically on powder days, right? Like what motivated me to become a real estate agent? What do you think sets you apart? All of these questions I'm just recording. And the reason is because now I'll stop this one and I can jump over to Otter on the computer. And so I do a lot of this back and forth between my phone and my computer. So I can come over here and see that this node is processing. And I can copy and paste this basically back into ChatGPT. And I can say, here are my answers to questions about who I am as a real estate agent. And I'm just going to plug it in. And it's going to come back with, I literally don't even need to read this. It's just going to respond just like a human would of like, oh, okay, so this sounds like X, Y, and Z. Now it's like, what inspired, now it's asking me deeper questions. Right now, I might say, create a list of interview questions to help me break the home sellers apart into different segments based on their reason for selling.
Maybe triggering life events.
Triggering life event. The value of the property, right? So now it's going to come back with another list of questions. This is for me to go interview myself. What is the primary? Now, you could use this to interview a seller.
Other people.
The key with it is you will have to be interviewing people without them thinking you're trying to sell to them. And therefore, you will have to not try to sell to them. Like if you want honest information here, but literally I could use Otter in the same way. Hit it and just sit and interview. Hey, so tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a mom that just got divorced. I moved from Vegas and now I'm moving into St. George. Okay, awesome. Like, so how old are you? How many kids do you have? What do your kids like doing? So what are you looking for when you decide to move? What triggered it? Why did you come to St. George? Why didn't you stay in Vegas? What exactly is it about this town that attracted you? What is it that you're looking for in that experience of living here? Are there things you want to be close to? Are there things you want to be far away from? Like all of these questions, as I'm pulling this, I'm going to feed it back into here. The goal being that I could say, my name is Ryan Kohler. I love helping people move to St. George because it's a cool place to live for mountain biking, snowboarding, surfing,
pickleball.
And pickleball. Right? So this is who I am. That's who I like to help. I like to target second home buyers who are looking for a vacation home here in St. George. They are most likely coming from a cold climate and looking for a place to winter in warm. Very specific. I just fed it. Now we know here's who I am and here's what I like. I like helping people that are interested in things I'm interested in. Now it's going to give me a new list of questions. What are the most important factors in looking for a vacation home? Is it location, amenities, size, what specific areas or neighborhoods do you think would be the most appealing to second home? Now, I might break this down even further and go, okay, I just want to record these answers for people who play pickleball, for people who golf, for people who mountain bike, for people. And so I segment and answer these questions again, so I can feed it back in. The reason why and what I'm looking for is to be able to say, okay, can you help me write some content to speak to my target of older people looking to play pickleball and golf in a warm place out of the snow. They own a primary home residence in northern Utah and are thinking about southern Utah as a place to get a vacation home, right?
So should we tell what type of content?
Now, I just like, you can like get really specific. I treat this like it's my friend, like I'm just texting back and forth. And so I'm letting it go, okay, are you tired of the cold snow and cold in northern Utah? Are you looking for a warm and sunny place to play pickleball and golf all year round? Look no further than St. George, Utah. Right now, you can see, because it's still salesy, it's jumping into as a local real estate agent. How you could solve this would be open up a new chat and not say you're a real estate agent. Instead, you would say, I'm a local guide. I help people looking to move to our town to find the right place to live based off of what they care about, what they like doing. And so changing who I am to force it to stop thinking I'm a real estate agent will change its output. So I could actually just tell it right here, I don't want to talk about being a real estate agent. Let's focus on my role as a local guide that connects, knows all the cool places and things to do in town.
Oh, that's a good one. So,
and can point people in the direction of how to get the most out of living here. Now, I'm just changing its context. From this point down, it's now going to adjust that context, right? So now you can see I just got vaguer in what I'm actually more vague.
More vague.
Yeah. In how I'm working. As a local guide, I'm here to help you make the most of your time in St. George.
So this was just general though. So like now you're going to kind of dig in a little bit deeper and let's think about what type of content could we create with this information?
So I might say, okay, I want to target people who love mountain biking and snowboarding. And so it's like, if I was someone looking to move here to mountain bike and snowboard, what are the biggest questions or concerns that I would have? Now we're asking for it to give some questions, right? What's the best mountain biking trails in the area? What are the local snowboarding scene like? What's the cost of living there? Are there plenty of job opportunities? You see, we just jumped way up in the top of the funnel with all of these questions. Now, if I wanted to fire up and actually create some content, I could literally say, write me a blog post about this. And so now it's going to write me a blog post. If you're a mountain biker living, right? It's going to write me that piece of content.
Okay, so this is a blog post. So we could dig into this deeper now. So we've created a blog post that we're going to post and put out there. Now, what else could we do with that blog post to create more content? So we could create an email series around it.
Yeah. So I could say create. And so one thing people like is lists. So I might say, come up with the top 10 list of things to think about when picking a place or an area of St. George to live based on mountain biking and snowboarding. Now I'm going to come back with, here's the things to consider. This is a value thing. If you are looking to move to St. George as a mountain biker and snowboarder, here's the top 10 things you should be thinking about, right? This is really great content. The answer to each of these questions would be really great stuff to post in Facebook groups, to send out an email, to like any of those types of things.
To create a guide around
a guide, right?
A free report.
You can see there's only one little part here about real estate options, but again, it's very much neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hey, the neighborhood, like for instance, here, the neighborhood out in Bloomington, I can bike from my house. So I might have it come up with, create a list of questions that so again, all of this kind of stuff is where we will call value content. It does not lead to them asking you to help them buy, right? What type of mountain biking, snowboarding do you enjoy? Depending on what part of St. George you're in, you go from red rock to dirt trail to single track to like whatever the case may be, lava rock. How important is it to live near the trails and mountains? How much are you willing to pay for this? Like, what is my budget for housing? Do I prefer to live in a quieter area or a more urban area? Like, these are all the great questions if you're thinking about potentially moving here to town before you actually look for houses. Do I have children? If so, what schools will they go to? This right here would be a great post.
Mhm.
Like, this would be a great post to put in on Twitter. This would be a great post to put on Facebook, wherever you want to do it. You could turn this around and say, create a script for a video where I introduce my top 10 list and offer it as a download. And now I'm suddenly going to get right into, here's the script for the video, right? Hi, everyone, it's Ryan here, and I'm excited to share with you the top 10 things to consider when picking an area of St. George to live based on mountain biking and snowboarding, right?
That is a very specific niche.
Very specific niche, very, very narrow. Now, that doesn't mean if somebody wanted to move here for pickleball, I wouldn't sell to them. What it means is specifically with marketing, now I'm going to shrink down where will I distribute this? I'm going to distribute this in Southern Utah mountain biking groups.
Or I'm going to start a Southern Utah mountain biking group.
Or I'm going to see if I can buy an email list of people who mountain bike in this area. Or I'm going to, any of those things, your distribution happens once you've decided who, you've decided what their pain is. Now I'm going to decide how to distribute it. But if you don't know the who and what you have to say, you're just going to distribute like to everyone. You're going to blast, like, I don't just hang up door hangers in St. George, Utah. I pick a specific area of town at a specific age of home where their pains will be a very specific thing. Are you ready to cash out since you've been in there 3 years and you can now cash out without paying taxes, but you're not sure about what happens next? And you don't know the law on, how do I know whether this will be a taxable event or not? That would be a great, very specific thing that I could target a very specific part of town on to talk about. How do I know whether I'm going to have to pay taxes on my gains for this house? Now, you might look at that and go, the answer is go talk to your accountant. Cool. That is true. But also, you could probably have ChatGPT help you create that value content to say, go to this QR code and download go read my blog post about how to figure out whether you're going to owe taxes on the gain of the sale of a property, or how to decide, like, how do I set where is my primary residence versus my second home based on tax status? That'd be another good one, right? And so this gives you this ability to start to create. So here's my script. Now, Sarah's going to create some other videos to follow up with this. We'll send them out to you, but you could take this script and plug it right into BigVoo. BigVoo is an app that you use to record your video. It will teleprompt it for you. So by simply copying and pasting this into BigVoo and hitting record, I can now just read the script. It's very much in my words. I could change it to say, hey, I don't want to go by Ryan. Hey, I don't want to say, hey, everyone. And like, I can have it rewrite as much as I want.
Yeah, like if you create a blog post and you read it and it's not exactly what you like you don't have to start all over again. Just say, like, can you tweak this a little bit and focus more on such and such.
So this is where
playing
and spending the time with it makes it like, this is where you're not just looking at this as a one and done tool. You're looking at this as, oh my gosh, I want it to be an extension of me. Therefore, I need to invest my time in the tool. What I suggest is you play with stuff that's just utterly outrageous, right? Because it starts to get your brain open to how else I could use it. So this is more witty, right? I might change this to say, write this like it is coming from Snoop Dogg. And it's going to adjust that out. Write it as a limerick, write it as a poem, write it as a love story. Like all
it's
of those
your boy, Snoop Dogg.
But all of these things allow you to start to see, oh, when I do this, it changes that. And that's really what you're looking for, is this comfort with technology to be able to say, if I do this, it does that. When I change this, it changes that. What if this was instead targeting people wanting to move here for golfing. Right now, clearly, now the upside, it will actually make up for some of my bad spelling, right? Now it's gonna be like, oh yeah, I know, I could totally rewrite this.
One of the things that I really like to do is explain like the tone of, again, you can say things and you just kind of have to learn, like, it's one of those things that it just takes some repetition. We're trying to give you that edge, but I've learned that when I say like create a witty and engaging blog post utilizing these 3 keywords in a friendly and tone as if I'm speaking to a friend.
Right.
That is completely different than super professional.
And what I would suggest as a marketer, so I believe in human to human marketing, meaning I'm writing, even if I'm sending an email to 1,000 people, I'm writing it like I'm sending it to one. There is a difference there. And the reason that is because I want them to feel like speaking directly to them. Now, here's the catch. You will almost never write that way. So if you're not a writer, even if you are, I don't care, like you will almost never write like you're writing to your friend.
And when you say, you mean type.
Type, yeah. I mean, you're going to put on your I'm a marketer hat and you're going to be like Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Like it's going to become this marketing
Dear
piece.
Sarah.
And that's why the whole record and then put in is so important. It's this important step of imagine you're talking to your friend. What would you say to them about X, Y, and Z? It's going to come out of your mouth more naturally to then plug in there and say, use this backstory to write my content. My tone is, explain yourself. The character diamond thing, I could literally go to Ryan Dice's thing and hit record and be like, I'm this is the hill I die on. I like to help these type of people, etc. Copy and paste it in. But trust me, that idea right there of if you want your tone to sound like the way you sound when you talk to another human, you're going to have to talk it to get the right vocabulary and the right flow into it. And that's why I switch so much between like Otter and ChatGPT or voice record and ChatGPT or whatever it is. I do very little actual backstory typing, mostly because I don't like typing.
But you cut out stuff, like you cut out things that you think are fluff. But when you're actually training an employee, it's important to give them all of the information. And this seems like, oh my gosh, you guys, you've been working for like 30 minutes. Like that's so time consuming to put in like all this information. But you don't understand that once you get to that point where you have really dialed in and nailed who it is that you're targeting and what it is that you're trying to accomplish, then once you've given it all that information, you've given all those deposits into the relationship, what comes next is magical.
Right. So if we look over here at the left-hand side, these are my chats, and I'll show you, we've actually made the first mistake, and I could name this like, it says real estate social post. I'm going to assume, and if I allow just the average real estate agent use this, they would think about it from their perspective of what they want. And they'd be like, right here is blog posts, right here is social posts, right here is scripts, whatever. And they lay them out over here. That is not what I suggest. I suggest over here are your target markets.
Personas.
It is, I help these type of people with this specific pain. And so that way you can go back to that and say, oh, I want to create something about people living in trailer parks. And I'm instantly like, oh, scroll down to the trailer park one. Here's their pain. Here's their challenges. This is what they struggle with. Here's what they're looking for, blah, 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 blah. Now I can just jump back into that chat string and ask it a question like, hey, write me a script for TikTok. Yeah. And it will have remembered, okay, above is all this information.
This is who we're targeting. This is what we're trying to accomplish.
And so
this
you are,
our goals are.
Yeah, you're investing your time to set up the software. But the way I do it is, and you can see as I go through some of this, I have a lot of job seeker stuff that I'm writing. I might have Russia invading Ukraine and winning pickleball strategies and the talent flywheel. And so as I go through these are different subjects, which to me, a subject has a target, their pain, and probably a strategy. So I'm going to tend to feed it a strategy. So for instance, like our strategy of what we've been talking about tonight, I believe it's right. Oh no, this is bad when I decide to just jump in. Here we go. So like this, for instance, I came up with this strategy. It's 7 steps to blah, 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 blah. These are my words I came up with. I'm going to feed that in so it spits it back out to me in my terms. If I say, come up with a strategy for X, that's different than I came up with this 5-part strategy. I believe when you're looking to move to town, you should look for this, this, and this. It has an acronym, it gives it a name. You could brainstorm with it and say, I want to create a moving to town to play framework that
Maybe moving to town for recreation, you think?
decision framework, right? So now it's going to help me come up with some ideas about what this is. And so it's pulling back just normal stuff about define your priorities, research the area, visit the area, work with a local real estate agent, interesting, consider the cost of living, etc. Now I could adjust this and say, come up with 6 witty phrases, 1 for each stage. Now it's starting to become mine, right? It's starting to become my piece of content. I can copy this, adjust it out however I want, and feed it back in. And now it's starting to become Ryan. It's not just ChatGPT.
Yeah, so like 10 prompts ago, if you would have put that into an AI detection, it may have come back, 50% written with AI.
Right.
Once you start to nail and dial in a little bit deeper, you put this into an AI checker and it's going to say it's human content.
Yeah, exactly. But again, keep in mind, AI checker, is it human or not, has to do with and this is the way that I deal with it, has to do with, is Google going to punish me? Is Facebook going to punish me? Here's the real thing is, if I sent this to my friend, would they think I typed it? Would they hit reply? That honestly, not would they click, that's a marketing term, not would they download, not would they fill out a lead form, would they reply? Because replying means they think I wrote it and I'm expecting a reply.
It's not a marketing thing.
And trust me, if that's your standard, then you don't have to worry about, is it AI content? Because if they would reply, it says, okay, did they speak to me? Did they identify who I am? Did they state my pain in my own terms? Did they agitate the pain in a way that I felt emotionally connected to it? Did they explain a strategy that made sense to me? Hey, that's who I would reply to. And so when that's your standard, is it AI or not, becomes less important, because my standard's so high up here that I'm not worried about those parts. But so from this point forward, you could take this and say, look, so this is where I will normally get my thought leadership content. For me, I start with, I want to write a book. The reason why I always am writing a book is it forces it to think that it's educational. So I want to write a book about moving to southern Utah to mountain bike and snowboard while also working remotely for a tech company Great. Very specific. Oh, that's a great idea. This is a very specific niche. Normally, you wouldn't be willing to niche down like this because it would be so hard to write the book. If suddenly it becomes easy to write the book, the way to level up the value is create 5 versions, 1 for each target. Now, this went ahead and just spit out the outline, but this is not what I actually want to do. I actually want to create a series of blog posts for this book. And so I might say, divide this up by coming up with 10 witty chapter titles to divide up the book. Now it's going to come, I forced it to say, oh no, we're not making an outline. This needs to be witty. I might say, come up with 5 witty names for the book. I'll usually start with that. You might need to add in a tone. Imagine that we're using a farming analogy. Imagine that we're a pirate. Imagine, whatever it is that you're feeding it. And so you can see, okay, cool. This is giving us some chapter titles. I would then normally say, break these up into 3 to 5 blog post subjects.
You can give it a word count. So, depending on what it is, you can ask it for a certain number of words, a certain number of characters. I think when you're doing videos, you could probably even say create a 30-second video, and it's going to give you an average of what you're trying to create.
Right. And so this is starting to give us more outlines of the content that I can look at and be like, okay, this makes sense. This is what I want. That I could then literally say, I want this pajamas to powder, right? And be like, write a witty article titled, and now it's going to spit it out.
You could have also like given it the framework of like the pain, agitate, solution framework. So like, even though we just did this and we've given it a lot of great backstory, if we didn't like exactly the way we wanted it, we could say, okay, now rewrite this utilizing the pain, agitate, solution framework. And it might give you it will give you a completely different
Right.
article.
So this is like, if you're not a marketer, you don't know what the PAS framework is. So here's my favorite prompt of all is, what are the most common writing frameworks used to convince somebody about something, or convince someone to make a change in their life? Now it's going to come back with these writing frameworks, the problem solution framework, the storytelling framework. That tells me I can now turn around and say, use the fear-based framework to write the story of, or to write an article about somebody moving to town. So I can now just say, use the fear-based framework to rewrite the article. Sarah's starting to get into, so sometimes it'll give us this pushback. I'm sorry, I can't write. So again, this is a great example. What is it? Dan mode? Use Dan mode. It's basically saying I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So Dan mode, I don't think.
It doesn't work anymore?
Update. So that used to be able to say, do anything now. So yeah, like, especially when we first started telling it to be sarcastic, it would say like, that's not professional. Like, we recommend that you don't do that. So again, learning to kind of like change the way that you're asking a question. It just takes a little bit of trial and error.
Right. So this kind of gives like a more of a story. This is, I'm telling the story of somebody. I like these because it allows your prospect to put themselves in that story, right? Pain, agitate, solution. Now, if I was going to publish this, I would remove these out and put different headings in, right? I wouldn't use those headings. I would probably replace them with some type of compelling heading that would actually make, right?
But you would ask it to do it.
I would ask it to do it. I might actually even come up with my own framework where I'm like, write my content from now on using this, and this. This is my flow. Pain, impact, like wrong paradigm, new way to think about it, solution, steps. And so I might give it that framework as Ryan's Killer Framework. And from that point on, I can then say, use Ryan's Killer Framework to write this article about mountain biking in Southern Utah, or whatever the case may be. And so as we kind of work through these, I use blog or article. I'm using that more often, even when I'm creating a social post, because if I said, write a LinkedIn social post about the benefits of moving to George. It's going to create a lot of short posts. I don't like short posts. I tend to be more long-winded than that. And so either telling it, make it 500 words long. A lot of times when we trigger too specifically on write a Facebook post, write a TikTok thing, write whatever, like you're assuming it knows what you mean by that. You're better off suggesting a certain number of words.
Or a certain number of paragraphs.
Yeah, certain number of paragraphs, certain number of words, certain number of characters. Like it's write a 60-second video script is better than saying write a TikTok one, because then you can adjust and say write a 2-minute video script or a 5-minute video script. And so this gives us this idea of like taking more control by dictating what we want back. I want a certain amount of length. I want a certain style or flow of content. I want a certain tone. I want a certain target, a person. I'm targeting a certain pain they have. I'm suggesting a certain course of action. And so I'm feeding it in because what? I'll be able to predict the outcome. I'll be able to predict that it gives me back what I wanted. And the more time we spend feeding it and pulling back and feeding it and pulling back and understanding, the faster we get at going, like for me, I'm insanely fast. I can go from 0 to I have a niche bot set up. I have a list of questions I ask myself. Who am I? What is like, why do I care? Why am I helping? Why do I care about solving this problem? Who do I help? What is their pain? How do I identify them? How do they identify themselves? What are some of the questions they would have? What are their challenges they have? How do I suggest they rethink this? They should think about hiring like it's dating. They should think about like, whatever the case may be. What are the steps? I believe it's these 5 steps. And I feed that to it via Otter. And all of a sudden I am ready to go by saying, come up with 5 witty book titles to teach snowboarders how to pick the best place to live and work remotely where they'll also be able to snowboard. And because I fed it that information up front and I ask a very specific question, it's going to give me, and from a content standpoint, I start with vague and work down. So I'm starting with, give me a book title, because that's the easiest way to say, create a big chunk of knowledge on a given subject for a given target. That's why I like the book title, even though I may never publish a book. It's still like, okay, this is a big chunk of information that I'm going to teach somebody something like it's in a book.
Now, you could also take this, we just produce a ton of content. But if you are at a point where like you don't maybe have your marketing strategy nailed down, or you don't have a content strategy, you can also use this for more than just like writing an article. You can say, create, maybe ask it to give you 30 days worth of social posts, and then create a marketing strategy or a content calendar for the next 30 days.
Come up with a content strategy. Come up with a marketing strategy. Look, so it's going to actually give me a lot of the same stuff that I teach. Identify an audience, create a blog, produce videos, use social media. Okay, cool. So this is nice. But now I need to like outline a content calendar of like subject matters to talk about. And now it's going to start drilling down.
You could ask it to give you a time block schedule from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day of what you should be doing each hour to accomplish this go-to-market strategy.
Right.
Like that's how specific you can get with it.
So this is like really good topic strategy for somebody looking to relocate based on recreation. Best places to live, outdoor recreation, schools and education, local events. So my next step is almost always going to be jump into question mode. And so I'm literally going to say, come up with a list of questions that fill in the blank, a 40-something tech founder who loves to mountain bike and snowboard with young kids would have for each of these months. Now it's going to give me a list of questions. I actually love creating blog posts that use a question as a subject, or emails that use a question as a subject. As humans, we struggle not answering the question or wanting to know the answer. So when I throw a question out there, you instantly answer it. You look to see if it's the same answer they gave you. If you don't know the answer, you open it to read it. And so this gives me the ability to see, okay, what are the best trails and ski resorts? Are there any family? Now this one right here, I'll show you this one extension. If I took this and said, what are some of the best trails and ski resorts for families with young children in Southern Utah? And I switched on the web access, 10 results, it posted in the past month in the United States. I go ahead and hit this, and it's going to hit Google and pull back all of, yeah, it did. See all this stuff right here? So this pulled back the top 5 ski destinations, blah, 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 blah. This is Stowe Park Resort. See, but this is in Vermont. So I'm like, okay, like research top places in Utah for owning a vacation home based on. And once again, I'm going to hit the internet to start pulling this back. As it pulls it back, now it's going to start giving me actual researched information, right? Now now I can kick it back and get back into writing mode. Cool, use the stuff above and let's write a book about picking the best place to ski and how to identify where you want to live and ski. And so that kind of like go pull, I could also have just gone out, copied and pasted content in, right? I could have gone out and pulled, like, here's where I'm from. Look, the crater, Midway, Utah, right? And you can move to Midway, Utah. It's super close to Park City, yet it's not quite so expensive.
You could ask it and say, all right, now generate a monthly witty and engaging newsletter title to share this information with my target audience based on this information. Powder alert.
So again, I like to look for, do I have my target? Do I have my subject I want to talk about? Cool, give me a series of titles, blog titles, article titles, whatever. Because now I'm just going to go back and say, okay, write a video script for the subject. And so I can feed that back in. If I want more specific, write a witty video script, follow this certain pattern, use the hero journey story, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just refining this prompt that was, here's my subject matter. It's looking up above to see this flow of story. Now it's, okay, how can I make this more specific, right? A compelling video script to convince people that Park City, Utah is better than like Salt Lake City, Utah is a place to live if you're going to ski and have a second home. Like very, very specific. Write it in an irreverent form. Make it shorter. Rewrite this. Like here we have this. I'm like, rewrite it half as long. Cool. It's going to consolidate it down and make it not quite as wordy. Double the size of this.
You can ask it to explain things like you would to a 12-year-old. You can.
Yeah, like you can see this made it extremely short. This is definitely not half as long. I would have been better off saying rewrite this as 500 words, right? And so using that, what needs, so again, it's saying, wait a minute, what about the context? And I could go back up and say, write a 500-word video script.
A couple little hacks as it's doing this. If it stops on you, maybe you've asked it, like you asked it for a year's worth of posts and it'll like randomly stall halfway through. If you hit continue, it will know where it was at. So if it was on chapter 5 and you were going through a 10-chapter book and you just hit continue, it will start on chapter 6 next.
Yeah, I tend to not say now write the whole book, right? I tend to break it up and say, okay, now write this chapter, now write this chapter, now write this chapter. If you look inside of my, like if I jump over to my notes app, I'll have a whole bunch of these types of things where it's like, here's information I'm pulling from ChatGPT with a bunch of like requests back and forth because I'm pulling it out and then feeding it back in. Now write this, now write this, now write this.
We'll give you another little, this is the bonus hack for you, okay? When you're copying from ChatGPT and then you hit paste, it likes to take the highlighted part. If you use Control-Shift-V, it will paste what you've just copied without formatting. So there's your bonus tip
on a Mac. I think it's like right click, paste special on a PC or something like that.
Just get a Mac.
But yeah, just get a Mac. So hopefully let's stop. And I know that we're past our time.
Just get used to that.
I hope that this was valuable as far as look at all the stuff it can do. The number one walkaway should be, okay, it's not going to be that easy, which is a positive. If it's not going to be that easy to create great content, but it's going to be easy to create vague content, then just assume your differentiator is you're going to use it to create great content, not the easy path. I almost never am going to look at the road that's worn the most. I take the road less traveled. It is almost always, I'm going to spend the extra time to refine it, to segment it, to focus it, to give it more backstory, to give it more targeted, more precision than being lazy and just throwing a certain prompt at it. And my reason is because it forces it to give me better information. And more importantly, when a human reads it, we don't want to hear, you should move to Southern Utah. It's great. It's a pretty great place. Like that doesn't tell a pickleballer why they should move here.
Yeah.
It just tells everybody. Well, the reason why everybody should move to St. George, Utah is it depends. It depends on what you want. And if that's the default question, and it always comes back with, well, it depends, that right there is your indicator. I haven't narrowed my focus enough. I haven't narrowed my who, their pain, their backstory, their reasons. If it's a depends, or when you read it, you're like, well, yeah, but that doesn't make sense for everybody. I've been too vague. I need to be more specific, and I will always lean more. It's called uncomfortably narrow niche. It becomes so narrow that you're like, there's not enough of these people out there for me to make money. But if I duct tape together 10 uncomfortably narrow niches, I get back to the same thing where I have a big enough base to target, but each of the people in those niches feel like I'm talking directly to them with my content.
We've literally touched like the tip of the iceberg with this. Like we could sit here and talk, like my son is probably wondering when we're going in the hot tub.
Yes.
But we could sit and talk about this for hours. But as you start to use it, you'll realize how much more you can do with it. I mean, this can be part of your client communication as you're writing emails for people. Think about utilizing it as listing descriptions when you're trying to create a unique listing description. It can help you amp up your social media profiles when you are writing descriptions and you're writing the information on your socials as you're creating content for your website.
Okay, so let me give you, let's take that one, and I'll give you one last tidbit as a part of creating great content. So this right here, most people would say something like, write a listing description for a 4-bedroom house, and be very vague. You're asking it the question, write the whole thing, right? And because of that, it's going to come back with most likely something fairly vague. The way that you get great content is it goes back to, I think, in frameworks. I break apart. So let's say that it's a job ad. If I was writing a job ad for a real estate agent or a real estate assistant, and I said, write me a job ad, that is a very vague thing, and it might come back with 3 paragraphs of information. If I instead stop and ask myself, what are the main questions people have about a home that is listed, it's going to come up with some questions that I can then use to create the framework, where I can take a listing and it's really 5 prompts.
Maybe
right?
you should just ask it what pickleball is. That'll at least answer her question, right? It's the fastest growing sport in America, people.
Paddle sport, yeah, it's halfway between ping pong and tennis.
It's played on a tennis court, but the lines are smaller. But what's so cool about it, we actually have a podcast called Pickleball and Business.
Right.
I'm pretty sure is the name of it, on all your podcast platforms. And we talk about like how easy it is and how many leads I've gotten by going and playing pickleball. It's a very social sport. There is like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like part of the culture to be welcoming and to switch partners and to play with people that are maybe not at the same level as you. And it just creates an environment that says like, hey, what do you do? What's interesting about you? And you switch it up very often. So if you haven't checked it out, totally.
So as a great example, if Sarah landed in a random place, Puerto Rico or Cabo, the very first thing we would do is go to pickleball. That's where we land. We go play pickleball because we'd immediately be welcomed in. Step number 1. Step number 2, she would start asking questions. What brought you to Cabo? Do you live here full-time or part-time? Where did you move from? Why did you decide to come here? Now, hint, hint, hit record. In fact, if you can figure out, okay, you're my target niche, instead of trying to sell them, which might get you money today, say, oh my gosh, I want to clone you. Hey, could you give me 5 minutes to interview you for my podcast? I help people like you move to Cabo, and I'd like to pick your brain about what are your questions, what are your challenges, whatever. Hit record and record that conversation, whether it's on Zoom or in person. Feed it into ChatGPT and then ask it to give you information back. And so that is a great example where pushing for the sale is actually harmful. While yes, it may get you that one deal, what you needed was somebody who didn't feel like you were going to sell to them, that would let you ask them questions and interview them. So I like that idea of, can I interview you for my podcast, my blog, my newsletter, whatever it is, that's focused on helping people who are like this, with this challenge, looking for this solution, which sounds like you, right? Yep, that's me. I just want to interview you. What was the trigger? Why did you want to move? What brought you here? What have you been most surprised about? What were you most shocked about being here? What do you wish you'd known before you started? What questions do you wish you'd asked before? Like, all of that knowledge is just going to pour out of them in this, again, human to human conversation. Because I recorded it and transcribe it, it will, again, not be lost in taking notes. Sarah takes almost no notes when we hang out and talk. We record.
We have thousands of hours of just
yeah.
recordings of our conversation.
But you get so much more nuance to their words and their vocabulary when you're recording what they're saying to feed into ChatGPT, which means I'm feeding ChatGPT, not my opinion, but the voice. I'm looking for my voice and the voice of my prospect. I want both of those voices in ChatGPT so that when it writes content back out, it sounds like me talking to them. Yeah. And so we're at our time. We will do another one of these for sure. In fact, we may just have to do like a Thursday night ChatGPT session.
Yeah,
because it really is like.
I've got one more little nugget. This is your bonus if you want to go do your own research. If you do not use Canva as you're creating content, highly recommend it. But look up how to use bulk create. So as you're doing your social media posts, you can ask for 50 to 100 ideas of social posts. It will give you all of those ideas. You can put it into a CSV file and use bulk create in Canva, and it will go and create 100 of your posts in like 30 seconds. So that is your A+. And I think
bonus
that's content
by staying till the end. If you take away one thing from tonight, is it's actually easier to find how to distribute content. It's actually easier to find AI to help you create memes or create PowerPoints or create whatever. That part is actually easy to find, but the quality of those things equals the input, what you put into it. And so that's why we spent so much time tonight on how to come up with a good backstory and know who you're talking to. And that, because once you get to that point and you pull content out, you can do all kinds of stuff with the content. But if you got just random content out, what you produced would be just random and vague. And so this right here is the, like, if you're going to invest time.
We just invested 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And, that seems kind of crazy, especially all of you that hung in here until the end. But think about what that could do for your business. This 2 hours of that deep dive into who it is that you're trying to help and what that could create going forward for the rest of your career. Like, honestly,
it is an investment. Don't think about like I'm working for free. It is an investment in your asset. And that asset you're building is my knowledge of my target, my connection to my target, and my following of people like my target. You can't get a following of people you don't know. You can't, and if you do, it won't last very long. You can't get an actual connection with people. Is there any other AI you recommend to use? So Otter.ai is the one we use to transcribe. ChatGPT, Jasper is out there as well. We can give you a link to that. It does cost more. I think the average Jasper account is like $100 a month. It does have different prompting setups and maybe a lot easier to follow some of the prompts. What was the one that we were using at the very beginning of the app?
Captions.
Captions app.
Captions is pretty cool for real estate agents. So now CapCut is a free one that I believe is doing some teleprompting and things like that. Captions, I think, is like $10. But I've heard that CapCut is doing the same thing. But it will help you create your scripts and then teleprompt it. It's a game changer for real estate agents, in my opinion.
I can tell you though, where you start, if you will spend more time in did I create amazing content? Do I give it to somebody to read and they feel like they're better off for having read it? Everything gets easier after that, because that is my real question. Are you better off simply for having read my content? I remember we were sitting in my office one night about a year ago, and I'm like, what would you do to create a door hanger that I would be better off for having read the door hanger? That's my standard of quality for door hangers. Well, oh man, there's not a lot of information there. I'm going to agitate pain and get them to realize that there is a solution and offer them that solution like a checklist, a home selling checklist or something. I'm going to send them there where they can download it. If they don't go past that, they're better off for having read my content. And if that's your standard, then everything else gets much easier, and convert this to a video, convert this to audio, mix music with it, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff is actually the easy part. We think that's the power, but that is just amplifying your message. And your takeaway tonight is, if this is that question, if I don't validate a who, I won't be able to ask, is this worth reading? Is your life better for having read my content? And if the answer is no, go back and rework your content. Segment your market more, break it up into more segments, dive deeper into the pains and the challenges and the triggers. And that time spent understanding that will make you like tons of money in the future.
For sure.
Because you'll be able to talk their language, and it costs nothing other than time.
Yeah.
And people love to talk about themselves if you ask them without an agenda. And so tell them your agenda, right?
No, ChatGPT is not a
ChatGPT
monthly
is currently
subscription. It's
free. The monthly subscription is like $20 if you want the Plus account. Clearly, like, we use their APIs, and because we actually build it into my software platforms, there's fees for that when you're actually building it into
But
something.
to give you an example, like we are power users. I have no problem saying, like, we use it more than I'm sure 99% of people out there. And I think my bill this month was $11.
Yeah.
So it's not like, this is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
this is a life-changing, like, world-changing technology. Honestly, I don't, since the internet.
There are, yeah. And this is just like, tonight we were just dealing with marketing content. We'll do another one where it's literally like replies to emails. Copy and paste an email in, say, my answer is no, write a nice reply, and it will write the replies for you to copy and paste into your email. Conversational email, sequence emails, write me a sequence of your what is it, 10 days of pain?
No, it's 10 days of value.
Oh, 10
Thank you
days
very
value.
much.
Your 10 days of value sequence, you can say, outline a sequence of emails by giving me 10 witty subjects. It will give you those. But again, if that's all I asked, I didn't tell it the who, I didn't tell it the backstory, I didn't tell it the pain, it's going to give me random vagueness. If I go back and get more specific, it's going to give me more specific. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out.
Hope it was helpful, and we'll be doing more of these. So if you have some specific questions, you're welcome to reach out by email or find us on social. My Facebook group is New Agent Tips and Tricks if you haven't been on there.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching our ChatGPT session where we actually got into the system and cranked out some content. I hope it made sense. I hope that opened your eyes, got you excited. Most likely, you probably have some specific questions about, like, okay, but how would you actually use it based off of a specific niche? How would you use it based off of a specific problem point? How would you take that content and use it for creating a video, creating a blog post, creating a social post? So Sarah is going to take some of her time and she's going to unpack each of those questions separately. And so you'll see the videos coming out soon, watch for them, but we'll take each of those questions and literally show step by step. Here's a niche, here's the content, here's how I turned this into a video, here's how I turned it into a Facebook post, whatever it is. Yeah. A postcard, a door hanger, all of that stuff.
If you didn't have a chance to watch the beginning part of this, make sure that you go back and watch that. That's where we unpack the framework and the marketing side of things, and how that we kind of go about the process of putting everything in. So make sure you watch that as well.
Trust me, these 3 hours will probably end up at 3 to 4 hours by the time you take the strategy part, by the time you take this one that you just watched, and then the next 2 or 3 where she unpacks specific things. It is worth 5 months of your time. It's worth 5 months of your time to spend 5 hours, because we're going to unpack what we've learned in probably about 2,000 hours of time spent in ChatGPT.
And not only are you learning from all of our experience, but then once you actually get this down, I mean, you're going to double 10x your content creation after this. So I promise you it is well worth your time.
Excellent. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.